This now looks like a habba. Sahitya Habba, Literature Festival as it's called. And as we would say in Bangalore, Iga Sahitya Utsavakke ondu kade bandide. Let's give the spirit of BLF a round of applause that it so deserves. Namaskara. Illi bandiruvanತಹ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. A very warm welcome to everybody, thought leaders, authors, speakers, inspirers who've come from the length and breadth of the country, some from even outside. And my name is Vasanthi Hariprakash. It's been a total pleasure to be invited yet again by BLF to present this. I'm an independent journalist. And as we come towards the finale, there are some thanks to be said. And you and I have, of course, enjoyed the benefits of all that. I'm going to be inviting one of the organizers, Krishna, to say all those thanks and take this ahead. Krishna, over to you.
A very good evening and thank you, Vasanthi. I'd also like to invite Shiny and Ravi to come on stage, please. Before we proceed, like it's customary, I think a few thank yous are in order. And in no particular order, I'd like to start with what we call as the festival anchor. This is a group that we've called as the Friends of BLF. A lot of them are in this group, so a big round of applause to the Friends of BLF. These are individuals from the city who found the Bangalore Literature Festival a cause worthy of supporting and have chosen to back us year after year, both with money and with time and connections and all of that. And each year it's the Friends of BLF, which is this core group of around 50 individuals in the city that actually help the festival and help us put all of this together. So once again, a big thank you to Friends of BLF. We've also been supported this year by the Department of Tourism, State Government of Karnataka. Thank you to them as well as to Micro Labs. Other people that have actually helped put this entire program together, our friends at Redbox, who've created all of what you see here in terms of the infrastructure and all of that. Our friends at Atta Galata, who've run a wonderful bookstore, as well as helped us pioneer the first ever edition of the Bangalore Literature Festival, Atta Galata Book Awards, which went out last evening. So thank you to Subodh Shankar and to Lakshmi Subodh at Atta Galata. A lot of what's happened over the past 2 days has really been because of a team of solid volunteers that we've got, a big group of volunteers, and you would have seen them here essentially, getting things done. A big group of volunteers have come from the Symbiosis School of Media and Communications. May I request Vatsala from SSMC to come on stage, please, and collect from us a few tokens of our appreciation. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vatsala. Thank you. And ably guided, coordinated, and managed by Abba and Prashant. So thank you wherever you are. Also from our side, we've had friends like Niharika and Surya do a lot of the heavy lifting early on. So thank you to them. Our partners on PR, online programming, and all of that. A big thank you to them as well. Vikram Sridhar for anchoring the children's session. Jenny Pinto and Ratnottama Sengupta for curating the film panel. MCs, Vasanthi, thank you so much. Tony Francis, Rachna Singh. A round of applause for all of these friends as well, please. A big supporter for the Bangalore Literature Festival, of this edition of the Bangalore Literature Festival, has been Mr. Balji and his team at Royal Orchid. All of the hospitality that you see here for opening up their hotel to us and supporting us in every way possible. Mr. Balji, Siraj, Madhu, Atish, and a lot of the other colleagues who've done a lot of work at the background. Thank you very much to you too. A few more key people, obviously the audience. Thank you for being here in such large numbers over the past 2 days. You've been a fantastic audience. You've supported us year after year. You've also watched us from home thanks to live streaming. So the folks that are watching us miles and miles away over a computer screen, thank you to them as well. And we'll keep live streaming going. It was a big hit last year. We've seen that grow in numbers this year as well. And of course, the authors, inspirers, speakers who've been here over the past 2 days with us. all of this wouldn't have happened but for them. So a big thank you, especially for folks that have flown many miles to be with us over the past couple of days, to all of the authors. We've had around 100 people participate in these 2 days. So our thanks go sincerely out to them. I think I'm done with that list. I'd like to make a special mention here. All of this outstanding programming that we've seen over the past 2 days has really come because of many, many months of effort. It's not easy to bring together authors, put them into panels where it'll actually, make it inspiring for the audience, understand what each person knows best, think about who might be authors that would complement other authors on a panel, who might be people that, and a lot of thought that goes into that. Hats off to Vikram and Shiny for doing all of that. If I've missed out anyone, my apologies. I'll ask Ravi to add a few closing remarks.
Thanks, Sri. Good evening. These days you've got to start things with a disclaimer. So the next 3 minutes that I'm going to speak to you, I speak in my personal capacity, not in the institutional capacity. Now, some of you know me, know that I'm this professor for hopeless and impossible causes, trying to fix pothole and garbage and other things in the city pretty unsuccessfully. So 4 years ago when Vikram came, I met Vikram by chance and we got talking and I asked him, what is it that you have in mind? What are you planning to do next? And then he articulated the vision for an idea called Bangalore Literature Festival back in 2012. And it was an amazing vision that he actually set out. It had elements, which are true to this day. It had elements of a neutral platform, diversity of views, inclusivity for Kannada, regional languages, Bhasha, all-encompassing kind of platform that Bangaloreans could be proud about. Now, given that our hard infrastructure is in a bad place, and someone who's interested in Bangalore becoming better, I put up my hand and said, I'm happy to help in getting some soft infrastructure going, and that was the start of the association. Now, obviously, with my gray hair and all that, what's the kind of role you can get? Mentor, advisor. And I said, that's fine, I'll start there. But then you soon realize that a festival needs money to run the festival. And I suddenly got conned into becoming the chief fundraiser for this festival. So, Gyan gets you only that far. People finally want to see the money on the table. I'm an example of that. So I was happy to do this, and as I know Sri mentioned it, but I must tell you about the Friends of BLF. Over the last 4 years, these things cost a lot of money, but 55 Friends of BLF, individuals in their own capacity as individuals, have actually written checks which has funded about 80% of the festival costs over 4 years. It's important you know this. The balance has basically come from the government of Karnataka, from the Kannada and Culture Department and from the Department of Tourism. And this is the only festival you'll see. It's like a college festival. There is no logo other than Bangalore Literature Festival. Nobody is presenting. It's Bangalore's festival. And that was the idea. Now, just a few takeaways. I don't have 8 like Ram Guha, but I think I have about 4 or 5 personal takeaways in this whole journey. I think this whole individual and institution thing, I think, will need to get debated in the days to come, because we do have individual views. As an individual, we say it. We are also parts of institution, and I think people need to realize that they are very different. I work a lot with government, but I also criticize government on civic issues on the press. I do it as an individual. In another capacity, I'm collaborating and working, and these are different lives. But somewhere we've got this whole equation lost over the last 3. In fact, incidentally, I must mention I aged significantly in the last 3 weeks. My hair's gone more white if it's possible. The other thing I've realized in this, and a lot of friends ask me, why did Vikram have to step aside? And for that, I think it needs a 1-minute answer. What we got to realize is Vikram has the courage of conviction and he stood by what he wrote. But you got to understand what is the raison d'etre of Bangalore Literature Festival. It's a neutral platform. We want all shades of opinion on this platform, irrespective of whatever color, whatever shade. It is the moment that does not happen, that moment that doesn't happen, BLF can cease to exist, because this is about that neutrality. The central space, in more ways than one, is shrinking. We are all getting pushed into camps. Therefore, it's necessary to hold on to truly neutral platforms, which is why we don't have the corporate funding. We don't have any of those kind of constraints so that we can truly be this thing. But what I've realized as another takeaway in this whole process is in the sense, so Vikram, if he didn't step aside, just think of what would have happened. There would have been a legitimate justification for a lot of people because they were mixing Vikram's individual views with the platform, which is not the same. And they would have used that to stay away. We would have given a reason for people who stayed away by if we had not done what we had done. Vikram was gracious enough to step aside. He realized that the baby was important. And that's what made this festival and this edition possible. And for that, I thank you, Vikram. The other thing I've realized in the thing is the death of irony. You know, I read criticism, of course, one gets it in large measures. When you go out and do something, you get criticized. You don't want to get criticized, don't do anything. But anyway, for example, there are legitimate ones. Insufficient Kannada programming. I looked at the Kannada programming over the last 4 years. This year is a little weak, but we have Bhasha, Sanskrit, other things. It's about 15 to 20% of the programming on a festival platform like this. Now, if boycotting authors who speak the language stay away and then make the comment, there is not enough Kannada, it's the death of irony. You know, that's really the thing. In fact, I have it's an unsolicited kind of viewpoint. But the next time some set of people boycott such events, rather than using these kind of things and trying to justify, let me paraphrase Groucho Marx. Say you will not go to a festival that will have you as a speaker. That might be a better way as an excuse rather than giving something which they've done. Lastly, some closing words here. You know, we're going to have this intolerant debate, etc. But the last few things is about what does it mean to be a Bangalorean is something that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And to me, the Bangalore is the plurality of what the city stands and represents, people like us who are involved repeatedly to do this for Bangalore. And I think we need to celebrate the kind of good things that are happening. We are spending too much time mudslinging and criticizing stuff. So I'm an eternal optimist. And I think the biggest need that the place needs, not only here, I think at a larger level, is the dimension of empathy. I think if we all came with a little more empathy to the table, you'll find a lot of the kind of issues that we are facing go away. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sri.
Thanks very much. Back to you, Vasanti.
Ravi, trust you to take the elephant in the room head on. That is so you. Well, intolerance, and I think that's become the most bandied about word. It's a joke. But then here we are, the finale, and that's what this panel is all about. Regarding what Ravi has shared about the entire BLF festival, the numbers speak. Bangalore, you've turned out in such lovely numbers. I think the registrations have really been quite a record. I've been watching it for 4 years, so I think that says it all. And a huge cheers. I'm now going to invite every panelist, one after the other, in no particular order, and of course keeping the intros absolutely short and crisp. First and foremost, would like to invite the writer and columnist based in Bangalore. He writes, Why I Write. His book, translating Saadat Hasan Manto's non-fiction from Urdu to English, which was published in 2014, Aakar Patel. Please take your seat, position of pride on the panel. The chairman and managing director of Biocon. She is a power woman. And the 92nd most powerful woman in the world, apparently by Forbes, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw. Welcome. He represents the government, and you saw him debating on this very controversial Tipu Sultan issue this morning with such elan. Let's have Dinesh Gundu on stage next. Food and Civil Supplies Minister of Karnataka. Dinesh, welcome. Swagata nimge. Senior Fellow at the Center for the Study of Developing Societies and Director in the Studies Project, the founder, editor of Manushi, the one and only Madhu Kishwar. I'd next like to invite the veteran foreign correspondent based in New Delhi of acclaim, long-standing South Asia Bureau Chief of the German news magazine Der Spiegel till 2012, Padma Rao Sundarji. You've seen her so often on television with her trademark kajal. She's a journalist, commentator, author, and the former political editor of Outlook. Saba, Naqvi, may we have you on stage? Like Ravi Chandar, our next panelist is also onto a lot of good things for the city and very, very vocal about it. For the record, he happens to be the chairman of Manipal Global Foundation, former member of the board of directors of Infosys, Mohandas Pai. Yet again, a television personality everyone loves watching, politician, spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. In 2006, founded Swaraj, the NGO, Sambit, Patra. Next up, welcome Sambit. Next up, would like to invite the author of The Lost Flamingos of Bombay and The Last Song of Dusk, Siddharth, Dhanvant, Shanghvi. Our last panelist, someone who Bangalore City loves and of course has his own fan club. Just when he stepped down, he broke many hearts, but then by being at the festival, he's reclaimed so many. Vikram, Sampath. Vikram, with that kind of cheering, you are well on your way to form or join a political party. Who knows? BLF is said to be a launch pad. You never know where you're going to see Vikram next. Now, to moderate such a heavy duty, absolutely glittering panel, we need an able moderator. She comes from the world of television and of course a universe that I used to inhabit as well, which is why it's an extra pleasure to invite Maya Mirchandani on to moderate this panel. As Maya settles down, I'd like to inform you that the organizers of BLF tried to reach out to Taslima Nazreen. She couldn't make it, but she's sent a message and hopefully, cross your fingers, no tech glitches, and we are going to have this video play out of Taslima's message.
Intolerance means unwillingness to accept views, beliefs, or behavior that differ from one's own. Intolerance is bigotry, narrow-mindedness, provincialism, fanaticism, dogmatism, etc. These are very much present in the societies of the Indian subcontinent. Intolerance is nothing new here. Women suffer from misogyny and patriarchy. Women are victims of sexual harassment, rape, domestic violence, dowry death, bride burning, sex trafficking, sexual slavery. Some rationalists were murdered in India. Some people were getting killed for eating beef. These are not only intolerance, these are heinous crimes against humanity. Someone said Wahhabi Hinduism is destroying the pluralism of Hinduism. I agree with him. Some Hindu fundamentalists are trying to be like Muslim fundamentalists. Intolerance exists in all religious communities. Because of intolerance, India was divided. Because of intolerance, I was forced to leave my country. And because of intolerance, I was thrown out of West Bengal. My books were banned, my TV serials were banned, and I was forced to leave India in 2008. I believe no country becomes civilized without criticizing the dogmatic practices of its religions. Without separating state and religion, no state or society become modern. There is a conflict in India. The conflict is between two different ideas, secularism and fundamentalism. I don't agree with those who think the conflict is between Hinduism and Islam. To me, this conflict is basically between rational, logical thinking and irrational, blind faith. To me, this is a conflict between modernity and anti-modernism, between humanism and barbarism, between innovation and tradition. While some strive to go forward, others strive to go backwards. This conflict is between those who value freedom and those who do not. India is not basically an intolerant country. Its constitution and laws are not based on intolerance and bigotry. But it is true that some people in all religious communities are intolerant, which is common in every society. We sane people who believe in equality and justice, who believe in plurality of thoughts and freedom of expression, and who love India should try to make India a better place. Thank you.
Thanks indeed to Tasleem and Nazreen. With that, I hand it over to Maya. The title, of course, Are We Heading Towards an Intolerant India Today?
Thank you very much, Vasanti. Before we actually begin, I know somebody piped up and asked about Barkha. This is a message from her to the Bangalore Lit Fest. She's very sorry that she couldn't be here tonight. She's releasing her own book in a couple of days, so she's been tied up with that, and I'm stepping in for her. So with that, she wishes, as I said, the Lit Fest all the very best. We're here to debate something that we do on television every night. As you all watch the news, you know what's going on. But I think in order to move beyond what we see on television, a question we all need to ask ourselves today, what is the definition of tolerance? And what then is intolerance? I think it was Voltaire, and if not him, then certainly many great philosophers have said, I may disagree with you, but I will defend till my dying breath your right to say something that's different from me. And I think that really is the spirit, that I may not agree with your point of view, I may not like your point of view, but as long as it doesn't threaten me with violence, I have to let you have your point of view, and the same goes for you to me. So why are we facing a situation, a circumstance in this country where time after time after time, when it isn't something that leads directly to violence, we're questioning this idea of agreeing to disagree, of not giving each other the space to have different points of view. I want to actually ask Vikram to open this panel. Ravi did make some introductory comments about why you stepped down from the Bangalore Lit Fest, but since this is a festival you're deeply associated with, the topic is something you've actually discussed in the wake of your stepping down. Tell us about your views on whether we are heading to an intolerant India.
That's a very loaded question, and I think, Maya, by the end of this discussion, let's get to some kind of resolution on that. But I think it's rather coincidental that I'm sitting right at the center. Of course, apart from being the center of a storm, I think I'm also trying, which I've been saying several times, that I'm trying to reclaim the space for a centrist viewpoint in Indian political discourse. I think we've got so straitjacketed into this left and the right, and each one not talking to the other, that I think a vast majority of Indians belong to the centrist space, where on issue to issue basis, people may support one view or the other. This rigid viewpoints that we have about anything, I think that is what is antithetical to democracy. The Bangalore Literature Festival and all the problems associated with it in the last 10 days is well known. I don't want to go over it in too much of a detail or claim any kind of victimhood, because this was a decision that I took with, as Ravi put it, with the courage of conviction in what I truly believe and wrote, and I will stand by it. Now there was... Thank you. Now, often it's been said there were 3 people or two writers who, after accepting our invitation, later withdrew. But unfortunately, it was not so simple. And I don't know who was doing this. There was a whisper campaign that was going on across the country. There were several media houses, there were editors of newspapers, and there were also others involved who were actually calling several of the participating authors and intimidating them, alarming them, saying this is a fascist festival, it's tainted, it's led by a person with dubious integrity and all kinds of things, and alarming them to not come to Bangalore. And there were almost 20-25 people who were sitting on the fence. We were seeing this with total alarm. There were Twitter messages of many people saying, watch out this space, tomorrow there'll be 10 more people who will withdraw, there'll be 5 more people who will withdraw. And at that point, as Ravi mentioned, I think we had only 3 options. One is to call off the festival altogether, which I think would be giving in to their demands. The second was to go with a very thinned down participation, which would have people of only one viewpoint. The third would be, since most of them mentioned me and my articles and a petition I'd signed, etc., about which we can talk later, which was the problem. So I said, if it is a problem with me and I step down, then perhaps you will not have a problem anymore and you'll get back. And this was and a lot of these people who were sitting on the fence actually came on our side thereafter. So this was how this whole thing panned out. It was very difficult for the rest of the team who had to immediately scale up and actually carry this forward. But I think a great way to begin this discussion, I would probably start with this hymn from the Rig Veda, the Nasadiya Sukta. We always don't have to quote Voltaire and others. I think we can see our own civilizational qualities for tolerance. The Rig Veda, the oldest of the 4 Vedas, it starts with this creation hymn called Nasadiya Sukta, which na asat, not the non-existent. It says this, a rough translation goes like this: who really knows? Who will here proclaim it? Whence was it produced? Whence is this creation? The gods came afterwards with the creation of this universe. Who then knows whence it has arisen? Perhaps it formed itself, or perhaps it did not. The one who looks down on it as a supreme arbitrator, seated in the highest heavens, only he knows, or perhaps even he does not know. So I think fundamental to this is this sense of agnosticism, of being able to question, where debate, discussion of viewpoints which are completely different from each other have always been a part of a civilizational heritage for us. And I'd written a very scathing article immediately after the grievous murder of Dr. Kalburgi, that each time an MM Kalburgi, Govind Pansare or Narendra Dhabholkar are brutally murdered in broad daylight, a TJ Joseph's hands are chopped off, a Shireen Dalvi, James Lane or Perumal Murugan are violently silenced, or a Salman Rushdie, Sanal Edamaruku, MF Hussain or Taslima Nasreen are forced into exile, it is this essence of India and Indian thought that is grievously attacked. Individuals are dispensable, but the attack is on a civilizational belief that has been sustained for centuries. And I've said in this article that in the last few decades, it has become increasingly impossible for artists, thinkers, scholars and writers to push the boundaries of what is considered sacrosanct and shake existing beliefs. If artists and writers do not break boundaries and rules, who else will? How else will new thoughts and ideas emerge if we do not demolish a few existing ones? So this was what I'd written immediately after that in anguish. But at the same time, in another article that I wrote after this whole process of returning awards that was going on, that in my opinion, I thought, and even here I've mentioned in the last few decades. So I didn't see what was the tipping point in this whole intolerance situation in our country right now, which inspired so many people to take this very extreme step. While I completely respect their views, even in the article I said all of them are several decades my senior, both in age as well as experience, and I have only immense respect. I've written that. There was no element of personal slander against anyone or doubting them or ascribing political motivations to them. The article was titled, Why I Will Not Return My Sahitya Academy Award, which I have won, which I thought was a precious attestation of my work by a jury, independent jury of fellow writers, scholars and academicians, and the Sahitya Academy being an autonomous body. It's not the government or a particular political party that gave me this award. So this was the context in which this whole thing erupted. And we were really taken by surprise when this whole campaign began, threatening to almost drown the festival in its wake, and the rest after that, as they say, is history.
Right, Vikram. Saba, if I can bring you in to this. You know, Vikram is talking about what happened at the festival with his experience and this idea of people having a different point of view, saying they're not going to participate in a forum which is meant for discussion and debate. What we're seeing play out in Delhi, in the corridors of power in Parliament, we've seen a debate on intolerance in Parliament just last week. And the overarching sentiment, while you have a leadership that's saying, okay, we will take on questions, we will take on criticism, there's another layer of communication that's sending out a message saying this is manufactured dissent. You know, so there's, in a sense, speaking in two voices. On the one hand, you have the Prime Minister who's made a statement in Parliament, the Home Minister who's made a statement. On the other hand, you have other party leaders of the BJP, of the NDA, other parties talking about how, well, let's not take this seriously because this is all that's politically motivated over here.
You know, is it being heard?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it okay? You're raising a slightly separate issue from what's happening with him, because since I cover a lot of politics and I can share that with you, my profile may be of someone who's been very often very critical of the BJP, but I constantly engage with them. Sambit knows, and I was at a function at a BJP leaders last night, so I believe in engaging with with people who you
You're
may
critical
agree
of,
or
yeah.
disagree with. Besides, it's my job as a journalist. But number one, just to, on a lighter side, if a group of fascists invited me to speak, I would go. You know, I mean, just since you said that people were dismissing this, I would go because I'd have some things to say to them. So, but what's happened, you know, the idea of boycotting Bangalore, I'm waiting for an invitation from the High Command of the RSS, or, you know, I'm just waiting. So I have no such issues about boycotting, and I also think it's, you know, look, we have to have a dialogue. Whether we agree or disagree, we have to keep talking to each other. But having said that, the reason why all of this snowballed is because of two concerns. Yes, writers took a position, but what has changed is the tolerance and intolerance of India. I'm sure broadly it's pretty much on one the same, but what has changed is it's not even the BJP per se, it is the groups which now feel empowered.
Right.
Because they've come to power. And let's face it, the fact that the BJP ministers say outrageous things. Now, why do they say outrageous things? Do they reveal their minds? There are very complicated reasons why they do so. One is they reveal their minds. Secondly, sometimes they're maneuvering to please the RSS. So these are all, you know, thirdly, they do not have the sophistry, some of them, that the Congress had in the past. But currently they are trying to back down a bit on that, but we have to keep talking to them.
Right.
So, you know, I'm completely, this idea of, because they are in power, how do you just cut off an engagement? You know, and that's one thing. But the reason for this is not because there's a manufactured debate, it's simply because concerns were expressed. Look at the kind of things that people say openly now.
Right.
They display prejudice openly right now, and they are in power. Look at the statements of some of the members of the BJP. Look at the statements of people in the Bihar campaign, and they got punished for that. They went and, you know, the BJP got punished. They actually lost an election where they began with an advantage. And this is not me saying it. There are some empirical studies and all which have been published from the beginning to the end. So there are 3-4 things that are happening simultaneously. And also we in the media are the easiest story to sell. I'll say one thing about is the Hindu-Muslim one. We don't want to look at different kinds of intolerance.
Yeah.
We don't want to look at rich, poor, caste, community. This is the simplest narrative is the Hindu-Muslim one. We've done it for years. We've engaged in this. We all get into it very quickly.
So in fact, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, when we were talking earlier, the point taking off from what Saba has mentioned, you know, we're looking only at one particular kind of intolerance in the prism, in a particular prism. You're talking about intolerance against poverty, intolerance against corruption. Why are we not focusing on those kinds of issues much more? Do you think that that message also needs to come from the top a little bit?
Yeah, I think, we must realize that we are a developing country and we really, voted for this government because of the economic agenda. And I think if you have to look at how do you fight intolerance, I mean, the kind of intolerance you have to fight, you have to actually indulge in is actually intolerance against illiteracy, intolerance against poverty, intolerance against corruption and all social ills. That's the kind of intolerance you want to, focus on. But unfortunately, what happens is that the moment you allow intolerance to take on a very violent form or shape or a conflict, then that does not lead to tolerance. So basically, you need intolerance to be actually put on a format or a platform of debate and discussion, and I think that leads to tolerance, because I think dissent is something that you have to basically accept. Dissent is something that needs to be discussed, debated, and that is what will make us into a much more tolerant society. So I think we should not be in denial. Of course, there is, it's not that the intolerance is mounting in this country. Intolerance has always been there. I think intolerance is there in every society. But it is for political leadership and for the people and the citizens to make sure that the intolerance debate is put out in the open and not really, crushed. So I think that's what has happened. Today, I think there are fringe elements who are sort of, basically taking the intolerance debate to a very different level and a different platform. And I think these are the fringe elements that need to be really sort of dealt with. So I think the whole purpose of this whole intolerance debate is, people say, oh, it's a perception, oh, it's a manufactured debate. But whatever it is, we need to deal with it.
To engage with
I think we need to engage, as Saba said, with those who are creating this kind of, situation. I think Vikram mentioned that, there are people who are basically, through a whisper campaign or whatever it is, they are beginning to sort of spread misinformation. And we have to deal with it. We can't wish it away. We can't be in denial. And that is why it's very, very, dangerous for anyone to keep quiet or wish away these kind of intolerance issues, but rather deal with them. That's what I feel.
Sambit, if I can bring you in on this, you've been sitting and listening to these comments. The idea is to engage, the idea is to, as everybody is saying, to find forums and find ways to take on some of the critique or criticism, as the case may be, and not come back with the response that it's manufactured dissent. We've had situations in the last few months when writers have returned their awards or scientists have returned their accolades, where we've had them accused of being anti-national, being accused of being traitors, giving India a bad name. Now, it's really becoming a situation of my intolerance versus your intolerance. I disagree with you, but because I disagree with you, you're telling me I'm anti-national. Where does that then leave room for any discussion?
A few very important things, Maya. Number one, as far as this tolerance versus intolerance debate is concerned, let me begin with a lighter mode, because everyone is looking seriously at us. I tell you, I have been often into these debates. As Maya was rightly pointing out in the beginning, every night we debate on this intolerance-tolerance debate nowadays. As soon as you land up for a debate, suppose you have come to Bengaluru, you have come for debate, and you suddenly meet the other panelists in the airport or in the hotel lounge, and you say, किस लिए? वही intolerance debate के लिए. and there is giggle. I mean, both the parties, the tolerant party and the intolerant party panelists, they would be looking at each other and they would be laughing. They would have coffee together, they would have a pizza together, and at 6:30 they will sit down for debating whether your intolerance is right or my intolerance is right. This itself proves that India is absolutely a tolerant country. All the panelists are tolerant, all the platforms are tolerant, and it is manufactured. Or else, if we were really so intolerant as we are making it out on the stage, we would not have shared that cup of coffee. And I tell you, when we cherish that cup of coffee, I have no ill feeling for the person who calls me intolerant right from 6 a.m. in the morning till 12 at midnight. I have no ill feeling for that person. And that person I know would have no ill feeling for me as well. Because that's the beauty of this country. We have been doing this for years altogether. Secondly, I'll share with you something very important, and very important which was not shared. The other day, I was with the Minority Affairs Minister, Mr. Mukhtar Naqvi ji. And that time this whole intolerance debate was picking up. And we had this African nations meeting, 42 national heads coming out in Delhi and meeting the Prime Minister. So Mr. Naqvi was just returning after leaving seeing off the Egyptian president. And he told me, Sambit, vichitra cheez hua. What happened? He told the Egyptian president, after the conference and all, he used to go back to his room in Lee Meridian and watch the television. He told, as soon as he put on the television, intolerance, 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 the Egyptian president called his deputy and told, go down and see whether everything is right on the streets or not. I mean, literally he said, it was as if there would be dead bodies all around, there would be fire all around, and I would not be able to step down tomorrow morning for my conference. So he was telling Mr. Naqvi, I literally asked my secretary, please go and peep out to see whether things are right on the street or not. So the kind of hoopla that we had created around this intolerance debate, well, yes, it's a democratic country, we should have debates, we are having one. But the hoopla that we have created is absolutely unrequired. And thirdly, I know I should not take much time, thirdly, the political manufacturing component. I was in Delhi. Before being a national spokesperson, I was a Delhi spokesperson of the party. I've seen the politics of Delhi quite closely. During the Delhi Assembly elections, two essential things took place. If you would all remember, we were debating every night about the church attacks. Every night, some church was attacked in Delhi, and that would be the headline news. Church was attacked, absolute intolerant people. These people should not be brought into government. One of the spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party was in the forefront leading the charges. And as soon as the election was over, no church attack. All the report was out in the open. The police report was there for all of us to go through. That none of these were attacks. These were accidents. Accidents were quoted as attacks. And secondly, there was a very unfortunate thing that happened in Calcutta. A nun, 75 years old nun, was raped. And hell broke loose with the media that it is RSS, the Bajrang Dal, with the backing of Bharatiya Janata Party, which got this done. Absolutely shocking. After 10 days, when the real culprits from Bangladesh were caught, all of you went silent. None of them came out and said apologies to you. No, it was wrong. And that's the reason as to why we say, why us? Why? And remember this breaking news. You put on the television channel in the morning, breaking news. Mishbah Qadri, she's a girl, a respected woman from Mumbai, from the minority community. Mishbah Qadri denied a rental home in Mumbai because she is Muslim. Mr. Modi, will you answer? That was the breaking news everywhere. Mr. Modi, will you answer why Mishbah Qadri does not get a rental home? Sambit Patra gave a phono, GVL Narsimha gave a phono, and we did not know why Mishbah Qadri was not being given a rental home in Mumbai. And why should Modi answer? By evening, everything was clear. By evening, everything was clear that there was some kind of disparity in papers. It was some kind of disparity between the agent and the woman, and that's the reason as to why she was not given a home. It was nothing like a minority community versus the majority community. And then none of them came out saying, we apologize. The breaking news were over. The next breaking news had to start. And at the end, 1 second. How the whole outlook is wrong, remember. The outlook towards this intolerance is wrong was proved on the very first day of the debate on the floor of the parliament, when one of the parliamentarians opened with a statement which was not made. Mr. Rajnath Singh's statement, the Home Minister's statement, which came out in one of the important reputed magazines, which was never made. So right in the very outset itself, the debate on intolerance started on a platform which was not made. So I believe it was manufactured to an extent, but I absolutely agree, understatements and soberity are merits. They are not demerits. Everyone, every politician, especially when you are in power, you should show these two virtues, understatement and soberity.
Sambit, it's inevitably very convenient to make the messenger, shoot the messenger right now. So the media is responsible for the hoopla around intolerance. I'm going to beg to differ with you on that one, because I think the media is also a reflection of what goes on in society. It's not easy to actually sideline, and just dismiss what's coming in the papers. And Padma, I think you'll agree with me when it comes to that. Also, very quickly, to take forward what Sambit is saying, it seems to be a situation where there's very little room for middle ground. You have to be either this side or that side of an argument. Where is the room for people who want to stay in the center?
Yeah. Sure, if it, can you hear me? Yeah. I just wanted to actually say that, Saba was pointing out how she deals with the opposite, or she talks to the BJP, and that she's willing to speak to people because she's a journalist, which I absolutely agree with. The whole, I'm a journalist, you're a journalist, that's what we do. We speak to everyone involved in any particular matter. Having said that, you mentioned the word sophistry, in passing. You said that the Congress, that the BJP politicians who have made certain terrible remarks, and I absolutely agree they were terrible, don't have the sophistry that the Congress had. I just, that brings in the media actually also, and the point that Sambit raised about the media. May I point out that, I grew up in Delhi, as you probably did yourself, and one of the main reasons for me to turn away and was get absolutely disgusted by the ruling Congress party were the 1984 riots of New Delhi, in which 2,000 to 3,000 innocent Sikh women, men and children were brutally massacred. I was a part witness to those riots, and I will never forget the fact that there were reports of politicians, Congress politicians, openly saying, may I please finish, saying, maro or maro, baal se khincho, ye karo, wo karo, the vilest, the most dreadful times that I have seen in this country were for me the 1984 riots. Now, having said that, I come to the point about the media that Sambit made. While funnily, I tend to agree with him on the headlines. I'll tell you why. There is a big difference.
We're not making this a TV versus print debate.
Let me finish. There is a big difference between what happened in the why was it easy for all those people, the culprits in the 1984 riots, to go scot-free? Because the only television media that we had was firmly in the hands of the ruling party. Any evidence that was available was either concealed or destroyed. Any witnesses available were bought over, were compromised, were threatened. So all of those culprits have gone scot-free. As a result, we have no evidence. What has happened in these many decades has been an explosion of the satellite media, specifically television, and real-time news. So what is happening is that anything that tends to make, that's one thing, the tiniest incident, you have the news on that incident immediately in real time, and when times are lean, like in summer, or as you know, in the media always goes through phases where there is not much else happening, by way of international headlines. They tend to pick up these headlines and blow them up into breaking news. So this is a tendency which I admit has specifically been, happened at the behest of television in this country much more than anyone else. And the last point I'd like to make about the media is another thing that we cannot deny. There has been a politicization, a clear politicization of the media. I mean, you can, people like us in the media, or readers, or anybody who reads and watches television knows exactly which journalist is going to represent which point of view and what his inclination is going to be. So I'm afraid we're not as neutral as we'd like to be, Saba. And I think we should all try and maintain that neutrality, of course. And I realize the pressures and compulsions. Running a television network requires a lot of money. But the point is that journalism and journalists have to be true
I'm going to
to all
give
sides.
Saba a very quick moment to respond to Padma, because how does this tie into the issue of tolerance and intolerance
First of all,
we're talking about today?
we are beginning to sound a lot like television. I'll tell you one thing, because Sambit has made that point about that nun case. At least 10 times I've heard him. 3 times I may have been sitting with him. He's done that, and he knows that. It's a sort of spiel that he repeats. Also bringing in 1984. Of course, terrible things have happened here. I'm also not going to go there. I'm not sure what the point was about the media. Of course, television is divided. no, people are also revealing a certain
Journalistic
ideology. I
insights.
mean, let's be very clear. It's
Yeah.
not just about lack of
It's about journalistic
command or the level of the fact that the Congress ministers tend to come from a larger pool of the elites and have better English. It's more than that. Many of the BJP guys are revealing an ideological side
Right, okay.
to them. They're doing that. I mean,
Okay.
and it's landing them in trouble. And good luck to Sambit and all. I mean, I really feel bad for him sometimes because Yogi Adityanath has been silent for this whole week. I'm waiting for that dam to burst because nobody can keep him down. Anyway, that's all. Let me move on.
Kishwar, would you like to, come in on this issue? Because, the point is we're digressing and making this about the media and the media's representation of what's going on. But again, coming back to the fact that there are incidents that are happening in the country that people are reacting to. We can make the argument about the 1984 riots or the emergency or, that have been done. And we've seen those arguments come up in the course of these debates as well. But what about the fact that there is a sentiment that's growing within the country, rightly or wrongly, as you see it, that there is shrinking space for argument?
I'm truly appalled by this statement for the very simple reason. You've just discussed what the so-called tolerance brigade did to Vikram Sampath. I don't think anybody on the other side of the political divide would have behaved like this. It doesn't happen. And as someone who comes from the so-called left liberal world, I was part of it, I can tell you from my long personal experience, and I will be now writing my whole autobiography. If there's one group of people that I felt suffocated by, this society never could silence me, could never put me down. If there's one group that could make you feel choked and suffocated in the way they did to Vikram Sampath, I have a whole history of such incidents I could narrate and explain. Now, secondly, I think it's because the so-called left liberal, because actually liberalism comes with such an authoritarian facade in this country. It's my way or the highway, as they did to Vikram Sampath. They are not used to being challenged. As long as there was only mainstream media, and since they held most academic positions, Congress party had pampered them, given them a monopoly of academic positions, cultural positions, this, that and the other. They are total monopoly, and also certain voices in the media, mainstream media. Now it's the social media which is calling them to account within minutes, and they have no answer. They are being challenged there, and they can't stand it that any ordinary person, a nobody, can stand up and call, expose the lies, the gross misstatements, exaggerations, and mischief that's being played in the mainstream media by some of our prime stars. Secondly, the reason I do believe, not only is it manufactured, and I stick my neck out and say, it's being done with very sinister intent. It is having sinister outcomes. Today, India is on the top of the list. ISIS has openly declared that India is their prime target, and Narendra Modi also their, pet target for assassination. They openly declared. All jihadi outfits have done that. Now, how does it happen that in a country where the proportion of Muslims from 9% to 15%, it increases in post-partition, whereas in Pakistan from 30% to 1.7%, it decreases. That's really where genocides are taking place. That's where intolerance is happening. And we keep spitting on our face, and we put India on the fascist map. And I think the problem with BJP is, truly, actually they're disgracefully, not just tolerant, cowardly. If anybody had called me fascist in the manner and frequency with which BJP gets to be called, I honestly would have taken them to court. I would have asked them to explain themselves and filed a defamation suit till the end. They're so used to being abused. And I say, आप अपनी इज्जत तो बचा नहीं सकते, आप मदर इंडिया की इज्जत क्या बचाओगे?
Okay, I'm going to get
one more very important point. See, it's not a coincidence that the characters that started this intolerance debate are the same that after 2002 declared Modi a mass murderer. 13 years they went on and on and on, despite the fact there was not a single FIR against him, and even when the Supreme Court exonerated him fully after a very thorough scrutiny by a special investigative team, they won't give up. And if they got nothing else, topi kyun nahi pehni, topi kyun nahi pehni. Acha, topi kyun nahi? And you know, mind you, I got the video footage of that incident, topi kyun nahi pehni wala incident. And what actually happened there, as this person suddenly descends on the stage with two things, this Muslim cleric, with two things in his hand, a green shawl with Islamic verses on it and a skull cap. And Modi tells him, topi mat pehnao, mujhe ye hari shawl pehna do, jisme Islamic verses likhi hai. And he wears it. I've got the video recording of it and I can share it with whoever. Now they don't mention that. They टोपी क्यों नहीं पहनी? अभी अगले साल मुझे कहेंगे तुमने बुर्का क्यों नहीं पहना to show solidarity. I'm sorry. It's the same brigade that wouldn't let go. It's the same brigade that wrote to the United States and to European nations to deny a duly elected chief minister, thrice elected chief minister visa, and they felt proud of it. तो इनके माए बाप तो वहाँ हैं जो इनको टॉलरेंट इंडिया प्रोड्यूस करके देंगे. 1 minute. You know, and their hearts didn't cry when Kashmiri Pandits were pushed out in lakhs, murdered, targeted, women raped and pushed out and stayed in the most miserable, wretched conditions. And it's not just 1984. As someone who's actually first-hand covered many riots, not just 1984, Mumbai riots, Meerut, Malyana, Muradabad, and a huge number, thousands of riots during Congress regimes. They've forgotten. Even in Gujarat, hundreds of riots which would continue with curfew going on for months on end. Now today, we don't have those kind of riots. One Dadri lynching, and you know, Sambit, you were right about all those bogus cases of Christian attacks. One was short circuit, another was a stone that came, or a cricket ball that kids were playing cricket outside and it hit the window pane of a church. 6 such bogus incidents made a big splash. The moment Delhi election is over, it's over. But the police reports gave us the fact sheet. Why is it that the BJP government did not come up with a white paper saying these are the facts of the case? Those spreading misinformation are spreading disharmony, and anybody who does that will be booked under law for spreading enmity between religions. Had they done that, this intolerance debate would not have continued in this manner. And I tell you, it's sinister.
Madhu,
it's being done to damage India in irreversible ways, and I consider it unforgivable.
The idea that the debate that's going on is sinister. I mean, that is the discourse as well that we hear. We hear that commentary and that narrative a lot when this discussion comes up. That again, coming back to political agendas behind it, manufactured dissent. Why don't you respond? Take this.
Yeah, I heard Sambit and Madhu speak. I think the way they have responded to the whole incident is they've just brushed it under the carpet, thinking that nothing wrong has happened. And India is fine, India is perfect, nothing to worry about, all is hunky-dory, small incidents in churches are misreported. But I think that very attitude itself shows the lack of concern or the lack of seriousness of the issue. And all political parties today have flaws in them. No political party is perfect. So if someone says that so-and-so is perfect and so-and-so is not perfect, I think is a wrong argument to make in the first place. To make this a BJP versus Congress itself is a wrong strategy.
I wish you would do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So to use that as a strategy itself is wrong. To talk about the 1984 Sikh riots and not to talk about the Babri Masjid demolition, not to talk about the Gujarat riots itself is wrong. There are many issues that we face in the country today. Sambit said a few incidents, but there have been many, many serious incidents. I think the incidents have taken place throughout the history of India. We have seen the partition of India where millions have died. We have seen so many communal riots which have taken place. I'm not saying that anybody is responsible or who is responsible for that. But I think what is worrisome today is that when the President of India speaks or very important people speak, are they speaking without any basis? Are they speaking just out of their hat without thinking? And the biggest problem I think is when these incidents happen, the way the government reacts. The government has reacted the way Madhu and Sambit have reacted. That nothing went wrong. I remember the Haryana Chief Minister saying, when he was asked about the Dadri incident, he said, eating beef is wrong. People should stop eating beef. So, there were mistakes on both sides. So he is connecting something to something else. And what is the construct behind it? What is the ideological construct behind that is the worrisome factor. I'm not saying that BJP is responsible for the killing of that person. Nor am I saying that Kalburgi died because of the BJP or member of the BJP political party. Anyone may have killed him. Or there could be some people who do not believe. It could have been anyone.
Catch the killers.
Yeah, exactly. We have to catch the killers. We have to catch the killers. But the problem is when you start saying that it's okay, it's fine. There are reasons for this. The reason may be that ministers, the way they speak, is that Muslims do wrong because they eat beef. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi says that people who eat beef should go to Pakistan. What kind of a message are you sending? And you had many leaders speak. Even the president of the BJP goes to Bihar and says, if Nitish and Lalu win, crackers will burst in Pakistan. What is the underlying message you're sending to different communities? There are people who feel this. Today on stage we may laugh it off and say that we can make a big joke about it. But people do find it difficult to get, Muslims do find it difficult to get accommodation in many places in the country today. That is the reality. For what reason? Let's discuss that. But don't say that it doesn't exist. And to trivialize it into a breaking news incident and say that everything is fine again is wrong. Let us discuss these issues. Yes, we do not want an intolerant India because this is not what India is all about. But what I fear the most is that I am worried that, I understand the RSS ideology. If you read the Golwalkar Hedgewar ideology, which RSS follows, and these are people who are holding high positions today. Hopefully they will be tolerant because India does not allow people to become intolerant. I think so. I think there's a limit to which intolerance can be taken to before society backlashes and people realize that yes, we need to hold back. So there is a natural sort of reaction. If that natural reaction had not been there today, I am telling you this debate would have been totally different. Because of the reaction which came about, it made Mr. Modi react after 10 days. He didn't react immediately. It made him speak about in the parliament in a manner which was more which behoves the Prime Minister more. So that was good. We want that from the Prime Minister. We want him to speak like that always. You can't play both sides. What I request is, let them not play both. Let them not play the good cop and the bad cop, or say one thing at one time and then go to the election and say something else at some other time. These are serious issues, and we need to discuss it seriously. And I hope that whoever they are, maybe it's the Muslim fundamentalist organizations, maybe it's the Hindu fundamentalist organization. Fundamentalists will never work in India because if you compare India to what happens in Pakistan, if you compare India to what happens in Saudi Arabia, we are making the wrong bloody comparison. That is what India has to. That's not India. That's not what we want of India to be. So don't make such comparisons. We want a different India over here. So let's think about the issues which have been raised, and there are serious issues, and government has to address it in a manner which convinces people that yes, we will not take these things lying down. They should have bloody sacked that minister right then and there for speaking such horrendous statements.
Yeah. Okay.
You
should have sacked Rajiv Gandhi for making many horrendous
since you mentioned in 84 riots and since I brought them up for the first time
I'm just saying
in this debate.
So that became a different debate. 84 riots, Gujarat riots became a different debate. I don't want to get into that.
I completely agree with you, and the point is not that one riot condones the other. Not at all. But the reason I brought it up is to make the point that there is a selective lapse of memory.
Yes.
There is selectivity.
Absolutely.
You see, and there is a selectivity about judicial judgments There is a selectivity.
I'm
The
not
courts
agreeing
that
on that.
dismissed the people who were responsible, the cases of the people who were responsible for the 1984 riots, no hullabaloo was made
I'm
about
not
it.
defending the 84 riots
Supreme
over
Court,
here.
which is one of the two
Neither am I defending
pillars.
anything over here.
No, no, I'm just
I
saying.
think you're taking it wrongly.
I'm not taking it
I said
wrong.
let's not make it BJP
I'm trying
and
to
Congress.
explain why I brought
Let's
up
get rid of this.
and the
That's the
judiciary,
issue.
the Supreme
Maya.
Court is one of the two pillars of democracy. We either accept a judicial court judgment or we declare ourselves a banana republic.
Okay, all right. Mohandas, you wanted to come in this, but also, where Dinesh referred to the president's comments, but also there have been ministers. Venkaiah Naidu, for example, recently also said things like, "Yes, there are incidents of intolerance in the country." I know that there is there seems to be an attempt to now frame the debate on intolerance into a Hindu versus Muslim thing, a religious divide. But what happened at the Bangalore Lit Fest was not about religion. It was about a different point of view and not accepting that different point of view.
My belief is that the major part of the intelligentsia in this country has been very selective for the last 35-40 years. They have not stood up for principles elucidated in a constitution irrespective of what happened. They have stood up selectively on some issues because they are ideologically inclined to great extent. For example, if you don't stand up for the freedom of speech when Salman Rushdie's book was banned, when you don't stand up for Tasmila Razin in West Bengal, where they say they stand for the freedom of the individual, when you don't stand up for Joseph, when you don't stand up for the person who was butchered in Karnataka for protesting against cow slaughter, and when you're very selective all over the place, and then you stand up for something, nobody trusts you, nobody believes you. Be like Voltaire, where you stand up for the principle, stand up for freedom, stand up for the principle, stand up for everything else, and forget about ideology. I think we have been large majority of the intelligence have been very selective, and that's totally wrong, and that's why this mess happens. Point number one. I'll finish. I got 3 points. Second point. This whole tolerance debate is an ideological one in this country at this point of time. There is an ideological battle between the left of center, and the right. What remains the right? It's a very small right. And this goes back to the fight that Nurul Hasan had in this country. We need to read history. Well, Nurul Hasan made sure that only the leftists survived in this country. He decimated people without anything. Nobody spoke up for the freedom of thought at that point of time. And they're deeply entrenched in some of the universities in this country, in New Delhi, in the media, in academia, deeply entrenched. And that fight is now coming out because they find a new India coming up, where you have the great majority of people who are here, who are maybe apolitical, who don't care much about ideology, who care about the country, and these people are getting marginalized, so they believe there's an ideological fight. Because most of the people, many of the people, never stood up on principles. They only stand up for certain things when they find they're getting marginalized, and that's totally wrong. So I say it's ideological. And the last thing I want to say, look, let us have a debate. We have different shades of opinion, we have different things, let's have a debate. But let's not demean India. Let's not demean the people of India. 99.99% of the people of this country have lived in peace. They want peace. They're staying with their neighbors. Today I was in my class get together. There were Muslims, Christians, everybody. We never felt different. We're all the same. I'm sure you do it. Saba, you do it. She does it. We all live together. We don't feel the difference. Why? Because, like MJ Akbar said, for 1,400 years in this country, we've been woken up by Azan. And for the next 1,400 years, the Azan is going to be there in the country. It's not going to go away, and we accepted it. We live together. The people of this country are very tolerant. There are incidents of intolerance, and don't demean India and individuals. Last thing, I was in London about 2 weeks ago, and there was a baroness sitting next to me, 8-year-old baroness. She was signing a letter along with 200 other British citizens talking about intolerance in this country. I asked her, show me the evidence of intolerance. I come from India. Show me where it is. No, that event happened, this event happened, Abatya is writing, this person is writing. Now you're becoming very selective. You want to fight with somebody, fight with the BJP, name them, condemn them, do whatever it is, don't speak for India. Don't speak for Indians. You fight, no problem. But don't demean India, and don't do that, because our name is getting spoiled. We have worked hard to build a name for this country. We have worked hard for everybody to have a good name. Don't do that. You fight is perfectly fine. Let BJP, Congress fight each other. We don't care. Let them fight. But don't bring India and Indians into it, and don't tar and feather us with this intolerance thing all over this country.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Aakar Patel into this. Aakar, what Mohandas is saying is stand up for the principles.
Yeah.
And irrespective of the political party, and in fact, political parties also need to set aside their ideologies in favor of the principle and make sure that the image
for what he eats, but are writing about the murder. Are you saying that?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in America, in the United
That's
States.
making a caricature of it.
I'll answer the question.
And
In the
tell me a
United
society
States-
where
in the
such
United States,
stray incidents don't happen.
Let me answer this. Aakar, in the United
It's not a question,
let me
brother.
finish one point. In the United States,
When
8,900
Kabulgi
people were shot. 8,900 people in 294
Alright, let him just answer
events.
the question.
But we didn't say America is intolerant because they have the gun in their hand. We
Alright,
didn't say
let him
that.
just answer the
Don't
question.
take one event and blow it up.
All right, Aakar Patel, take that on.
Before Kalburgi was killed, there was a report on NDTV filed by Srinivasan Jain. I'm going to read 2 lines from it. It says, in a June 2014 video, BJP protesters in Bangalore are seen and heard calling Professor Kalburgi anti-national, anti-Hindu and a liar. Placards at the meeting ask for him to be thrown out of the country. A separate image shows BJP protesters even staging mocking Shraddh post-death rituals for Professor Kalburgi. There were similar demonstrations in Dhanvant. I think that what links the killing of Mr. Kalburgi to the killing of Mr. Muhammad Akhlaq in Dadri is the idea that the BJP can calibrate Hindutva, that it can do this sort of mischief, but at some point it's able to control it. When they did it in 92, that structure came down and Mr. Advani said that it's the saddest day of my life. 2,000 Indians died. It tends to get out of hand, Hindutva, because they deal with the periphery. I think they deal with things that are not in their control fully. They exploit fault lines in a society that is, like all societies, not perfect. I think that we don't have, we do have fault lines. I think to play politics on the cusp of that fault line, is it responsible? I think that is the question I would ask. The other thing is that the other thing is that there seems to me to be a rewarding of those who make statements that are irresponsible. I'll give you 3 specific examples. If you were to say that those who don't vote for Mr. Modi should go to Pakistan, you're sent to the Lok Sabha, Mr. Giriraj Singh. If you say that those Indians who are non-Hindus are bastards, which is what the word Haramzada means, you are defended in parliament by the Prime Minister, Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti. If you murder 97 Gujaratis, you are made a minister, Mayabin Kudnani. I think that if we want to completely dismiss the fact from the argument and to look at it from the nationalist point of view, I'll be with the audience. I think we should all worship and pray for the wellness of Bharat Mata every morning. But I'm saying on some instances, when we are murdering people, should we look at ourselves and introspect a little bit? That is the only thing I'm saying. When we are violent, we should accept the fact that we are in the wrong. I am being told today that the BJP has the right to abuse and molest Indians because Congress abused and molested Indians in 1984.
No. I'm sorry. This is just not acceptable. This is definitely, none of us say that. None of us have ever said
Let
that.
him finish his point, Madhu. You want to finish your point?
You can't make a
Maybe
caricature.
she can finish it for me.
Yeah.
Gladly.
You want to finish your point? Go ahead, finish your point, Aakar. Finish your point.
I think that in India we have the kind of Brahminical approach to history. When I talk about something that happened this morning, my mother will say, but you were very badly behaved when you were 12 years old. So we never come to the conclusion of an argument. We are talking of a situation at the moment where deliberately from within the government, Hindutva is being used to create and propagate violence that results in the murder and the killing of Indians. This is what is demeaning India in the outside world. It is not people talking about it. If people are unwilling to accept this fact, I don't want to argue against it. I don't have an argument against it.
All right, Sambit, not only to respond to this, but the larger issue that 2 wrongs don't make a right. Yes, 1984 happened. Yes, other riots have happened. But this is also happening. And if you're looking at a strong government and a strong leadership to send out a strong message, the government or the party's response when you come into our debates cannot be, UP is ruled by the Samajwadi Party, or Karnataka has the Congress, or Bihar has the JDU, so go and talk to the state governments. Yes, law and order is a state subject, undoubtedly. But we also have a prime minister in this country who is an extremely good communicator. He's on Twitter, he speaks to audiences, he does a radio program, he's always communicating with his voting public. So the question that's been asked repeatedly is, should he perhaps make some statements to rein in people like the ones Aakar has mentioned?
Number one, before I speak for the government and come to the point proper, Akash has used in fact Hindutva twice or thrice in his old speech, saying that Hindutva was manipulated in a way in which Indians were murdered. Before I act as a spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party, as a Hindu, I can fold my hands and say, you can manipulate me to any extent, but with the philosophy of Hindutva, which has Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti almost 1,000 times everywhere, I would not murder anyone. Let me tell you that. I would not be indoctrinated to murder anyone. And the Bharatiya Janata Party is not a indoctrinating machine that we are sending such kind of message anywhere. Secondly, when you say that don't compare 1984 with the
I'm
present
not saying
things,
don't compare. I'm saying two wrongs don't make a right.
well, let me show you how it is all manufactured. Let me take a selective case. Let's have the case study of the one who returned the award first, and this whole award wapasi became a topic of discussion. Nayantara Sehgal. Leave aside that she is the niece of Jawaharlal Nehru or she has anything to do with the Gandhi family. But Nayantara Sehgal has two important things which brings her to the center of the debate, and selectivism reflects from Nayantara's behavior. Number one, she got her award in 1984. She got her award in 1984 when Sikhs were being massacred on the street. She felt that, well, yes, the government in power which was honoring her was tolerant enough from whom she should, or she rather received the award. She did not oppose them. Secondly, Nayantara Sehgal, since she is the niece of Nehru, has a Kashmir connection. Never ever she spoke against the butchery of the Kashmiri Pandits. Never ever. When this particular question was asked of Nayantara Sehgal, that you having a Kashmiri root never spoke about the Kashmiri Pandits. You never saw anything wrong in the butchery and rape of the Kashmiris. You never saw anything wrong with the Sikhs and their butchery. And today you feel, just a second, and today you feel,
we're not talking about individuals over here.
Just a second.
So
I was very tolerant. I was very tolerant. I never came in there.
Sambit, you promised you were not
I have an objection. I have an objection.
Mr. Gundu, I will never come in the middle of anyone. Allow me to complete.
Do not name people when they're not around.
Please. You have named Mr. Modi 1,000 times, and I cannot name a Nayantara Sehgal.
I named him as the Prime Minister.
All right.
Mr. Gundu,
Okay.
let me talk.
I think the point, if I
No,
can just
I have not
interject
come
over here.
10 seconds.
I named him as the Prime Minister of the country.
If I can just interject on behalf of
I think you're
Dinesh
doing
right now, I think the
injustice to
point
her.
he's trying to make is that you're talking about a specific individual, and that point is taken. But the issue of intolerance, if I can try and take this forward and not just to the individual, okay, she returned her award. Now
let's come to a larger point.
She chose not to return it in 1985 when she got it. She chose to accept it. But now that she has returned her award, okay, she's returned her award. Why should it become an anti-national trait?
No, not anti. We just call it not anti.
Just a second.
Yeah.
No one is calling anyone an anti-national. All we are saying is manufactured debate, and that's what you asked me, whether it's manufactured or not, and I was pointing you case by case as to how it is manufactured, and I proved it that Nayantara Sehgal, who started it right in the beginning, was a manufactured case. Now coming on a larger perspective, and a very important one, such is the secularism state in India today. Do you think that the secularism of this country is so fragile that every evening these 10 people have to sit down to protect the secularism of this country? If we don't debate, secularism will vanish from this country. Now, two very important things happened. Mr. Obama criticized India when the church attacks were going on. You would remember he was in India then.
Yeah.
And when this hoopla was created around the false attacks on churches, Mr. Obama, from the soil of India, criticized India. All of you pounced on us. Answer! Mr. Obama has criticized India and the Hindu means of functioning. We were answering. About 10 days ago, Mr. Obama did not speak about Indian Muslims. He spoke about what was happening in Iraq. He spoke about what was happening in Syria, about ISIS. And he spoke that Muslims should be more aware towards the education system. All of you came out, condemn Obama, condemn Obama. Why is he speaking about Muslims now? So what kind of secularism are we talking about? He was not speaking about Indian Muslims. You want us to condemn about what he was speaking about others. But when he is speaking against India, you want to buy that philosophy that he was selling us.
Okay, Saba,
Sambit, I'll just make a very, very simple point, and this is that the point is not about 1984. It's not about Kashmiri Pandits. It's not about this.
Why? Why is it not about?
I'm not arguing with you right now. Let me make my point.
Yeah, but tell us why is it not?
Can I say what I have to say? The recent talk of intolerance has been triggered off by specific incidents which are happening after a time when there is single party BJP rule. We accept that. So there is a presumption in that certain forces are getting emboldened. So now, instead of addressing the problems that may be within you, you say, somebody will say ISIS, someone will say Kashmiri Pandits, the X will say 1984. They're all valid things. Let's have separate debates for all of them. But don't try to diffuse, don't use the diversionary tactic. Obama, 1984, this, that. Let's talk about what the problem is.
Maya, if you give me 30 seconds, 30 seconds, because I'm the lone government. Just 30 seconds, with due permission from Siddharth, I'm so sorry you have not come in. For just 30 seconds, I'll be quiet after that. See, as far as the specifics is concerned, let me go back to Dadri. Very unfortunate thing happened in Dadri. No one is standing for what happened in Dadri. Maya, you asked me as to why the Prime Minister, who is on Twitter, on the social network, why the Prime Minister spoke late. Now, let me tell you, when Dadri happened, first, it's a federal structure. The central government, the Home Ministry, asked the state government to respond through a written note. After 15 days or so, the state government responded, and let me tell you, there was no mention of beef in the state government, which is not our state government. It was a Samajwadi Party government, and we are not in cahoots with the Samajwadi Party. They are the friends. They wanted Deputy Prime Minister as Rahul Gandhi and the Prime Minister as Mulayam. So we are not in cahoots with the Samajwadi Party. We are not the Mahagathbandhan with them. They did not mention beef. They did not even have IPC 302, they did not have it there. If the Prime Minister would have spoken before the state government submitted the report, I tell you, the same people who are ranting intolerance today would have been saying, what kind of Prime Minister is he? He is breaking federalism of this country. संघीय ढांचा को तोड़ डाला रे, देश को तोड़ डाला. ये president rule लगाने वाले हैं that he is going to impose the president's rule in Uttar Pradesh. The same people would have been asking us why the Prime Minister is speaking out of the turn before even the Chief Minister has submitted the report. The Prime Minister did what the democratic norms of a federal country allows him to do.
Okay, all right, Kiran, sure. Before I come to Siddharth, I want just you to come in on this. We've talked about, they've referred to Obama's speech on church attacks, they've referred to other incidents. Sambit has talked about why in a federal structure it's difficult. But if I can just extrapolate from that and bring in the example of Barack Obama, we've seen these gun attacks in the US repeatedly in state after state after state. Now, every time something happens, there is a statement from the White House. Should there be? Should there not be? It's a federal structure. It's none of his business at the end of the day. Is that the example we want to follow? Then it's not the centre's responsibility. What happens in the states, it's the state's responsibility. Is that a message we're sending out?
I think in this particular case, let's all understand that I think it would have been very becoming of the Prime Minister to condemn the act, even on Twitter. And I think, I'm sure the Prime Minister in hindsight would have felt he should have done it. And I think, it's very important for law and order to make sure that we nab these culprits.
Yes.
See, even today, nothing has happened in Dadri or in Karnataka for that matter. And I think that's the big problem.
That's the big problem.
I think first and foremost, I think another point that I want to also make is that not only should the Prime Minister have condemned the attack, but he could have actually sought an explanation from the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh saying, what are you doing about this? Please. I mean, I think he would have got brownie points for that.
He did that.
But much too late.
No. The very second day, the Home Ministry, the Prime Minister is not supposed to write every letter. The Home Ministry, which is supposed to do the very next day, shot out to the Chief Minister.
Let's
sorry.
Not get into these kind of discussions.
But that's how it is supposed to be.
Timing is everything.
And perception is everything. Exactly. Okay. All right. Timing and perception in this context. Siddharth, you've been waiting patiently to get in on this debate. You're a writer. We're talking about intolerance. Your community has been divided on this particular issue. Where do you stand on whether award wapsi should have happened?
Do I get an award for tolerance?
Of tolerance for tolerance.
for waiting this long. So, I work as a writer. I work with words, with language. That's my ammunition. So I'm going to come to this debate not politically charged, but as someone who looks, studies, rinses language to attend to one's life. Salman Rushdie had a very clear thing to say about book bans. Don't like a book, don't read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to extend the same logic towards, you don't want yours, return it. That's fine. But don't punish someone else who wants to hold on to their own awards. That's not right. I think the intolerance debate is partly manufactured, partly exists, and it is very important to talk about it. But the structure of this debate is deeply flawed. If you say that returning awards is a way of embarrassing the government, the ruling government, I would argue back saying that you are the same lot of people who call this government fascist. Do you really think that they're going to turn around and buckle from the pressure that a bunch of writers gives by returning their awards? That ain't going to happen. They're not going to look at you and say, oh, you gave your awards back. Hoo-hoo, I'm really afraid. Now, connect this to another writer. If this happened in America, and I can only talk about writers, I'm not going to talk about politics. If a writer of the stature of Toni Morrison, who is a very profoundly political writer, if she was shot dead, do you believe American writers would return their National Book Awards and say, this is how we protest? No, they wouldn't. They would go back and say, this is a law and order situation.
Absolutely.
This is a crime. This is a murder. You need to attend to that. That is what's going to happen. Now, because I think that there is this very simplistic, naive, sophomoric binary of people who believe nothing is wrong and people who believe that, somebody said recently that there's a mass murder of fellow human beings happening, which is also ridiculous. So I think because I work with language and with words, I want to try to bring to the city of Bangalore, to this debate specifically, in a personal capacity and with permission from the Bangalore Literary Festival, a grant that I would write personally, a check of $1.5 lakh, to study what we mean by the word intolerance. No one knows. No one knows. When Ram Guha talks about the fact that this is a Philistine government, I would say that the intellectual life in this country is equally Philistine. So I think we need to go back to the academics, to the scholars, and ask for what we mean by intolerance. And this study, there were 3 points that I would like to raise, is that I would like a clear academic factual definition of the word intolerance, what falls under the umbrella of intolerance, how the Indian notion of intolerance changed over the last 4 decades, incidents of perceived and actual intolerance under at least 3 different governments, and how is the situation different from seasons past. With this information, I think I would like to meet again next year and talk about this. So thank you.
So the Bangalore Lit Fest has a grant of $1.5 lakhs to give to somebody they see fit.
But Maya, the thing is, I'm a simple writer from a village, but there are major powerhouses in the audience here. Yeah. And I would also invite them to say that, look, this is what we're going to set down our money to do, is to actually understand the language that attends to this debate, because no one knows what this language is.
So Siddharth is putting his money where his mouth is on the intolerance debate.
Absolutely.
Aakar, yes.
I just wanted to correct something that was said by Mr. Patra, which is that he appropriated the faith. I did not mean that Hinduism was the same thing as Hindutva. It is not. The Hinduism my mother taught me is very different from Hindutva. I don't recognize it as being the same.
All right.
By the way, how is Hindutva and Hinduism different?
Hello.
I don't understand. 1.5 lakhs. Yet we need some more contribution. We have to understand how Hindutva and
and everyone is welcome to contributing.
I would also offer a similar amount if somebody could prove to me how Vikram Sampath became a fascist by inviting. Actually, if you look at the composition of speakers and panels in Bangalore Lit Fest, those who are dubbing him fascist, right wing, or whatever else, simply because he didn't agree with them in the most civilized language, how does he qualify? Or how does India today qualify to be called fascist, or even BJP as a fascist party? Because fascists, if you oppose, they send you to concentration camps. And the casualness with which this word is bandied. And as I said, if it's only BJP they abuse, okay, have a good time. If they can't handle them, kill them, I have no problem. But what you're doing is defaming India. You've dubbed us all fascists simply because we don't agree with you and simply because you are not in power. And quickly, this business of selective outrage. Recently, you remember the BJP government banned a couple of child porn sites, and the liberal left went blue in the face, saying this is moral policing and fascist and this, that and the other. In 1986-87, mine was the lone voice when Rajiv Gandhi government enacted an extremely ill-advised law called Indecent Women's Representation Act. And if you look at the definition of the act and how draconian it is, actually the BJP government doesn't need to do anything except implement Rajiv Gandhi's act, and all of these people who want to watch porn will be in jail. They only banned child porn, and suddenly, in 1987, it was politically fashionable to protest against indecent representation of women, which meant semi-nude women in ads, etc. And a very draconian law was passed by a very liberal government. Similarly, same year, 86-87, 3 children in Kerala school from Jehovah's Witness sect refused to sing the national anthem in school because their religious faith doesn't allow. And you know how Rajiv Gandhi and his government responded? The Supreme Court ordered that provided they are singing, standing in respect, which they were well-behaved children, that it's not mandatory, it cannot be considered a crime not to sing the national anthem if you think it militates against your cherished faith. The Supreme Court said that children should be taken back to school because they were expelled under Congress regime. Now, Rajiv Gandhi says he's going to amend the constitution, make it mandatory, and Muhammad Yunus went so far as to declare that judges of the Supreme Court, namely Chennappa Reddy, who gave their judgment are neither Indian nor judges. Neither Indian nor judges. Today, such silly statements would be made by so-called fringe element, and we all go after them. But Rajiv Gandhi was not fringe element. He threatened the Supreme Court, and that was very liberal. The point that we're trying to make is kindly don't be selective. Not even one murder is acceptable. Not one word of hate speech is acceptable. But your heart should bleed for all who are wronged, not selectively, and kindly don't play dirty games with the social fabric of this country, because what you're doing in this hysteria that you're creating against Hindu community, making it out as if we are all the time out to kill, trample upon Muslims, trample upon Christians. You are actually creating a divide. You are actually creating a sense of victimhood at a time when the whole world is discussing the threat of jihad, with India on top of the list. You are making India into a place. You're making India into a place where as though we are murdering and massacring.
Just a quick point. Dispute about the fact that outrage should not be selective when a crime has been committed. I think we're all on this panel on the same page as far as that is
I just want to quickly say something. I don't know, I can't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned, the fact that the 84 riots are not important anymore because they happened so long ago, and it's very important to examine each of these incidents that happened now. It's very important to. Okay, nobody said that. But what was said was something about, because this is a single party rule, the BJP, so therefore the incidents that are happening now, these terrible crimes, did you say that, have to be examined or must be examined, and I completely agree they must be examined. We're all on the same page. I just wanted to remind you, Saba, that not only was this country under single party rule for the longest period of its history, it was under a single family rule for the longest period of this history. So that's one thing. The other thing I'd like to say is, I think, instead of going, what I find is what is really essential to bring into this debate is the fact, as Vikram pointed out right in the beginning, that what has gone completely missing from this country is the room and space for a centrist position.
Yeah.
The problem is that anybody who is not slightly left of center, which means the Congress, or extremely left of center, which means the left, if you're even half a centimeter right of them, which means you are centrist, it means you are an extreme right-wing Hindu radical goon. And I'm afraid this is the thinking that has to go. We have to create, like all mature democracies have done. If you look around you in Europe, many countries, an increasing number of countries are being governed by conservative governments, but there is a centrist space.
Yes.
It cannot, all be, you have to either be a former Congress voter or a Congress
should have the
supporter,
freedom
or
to
you're a
disagree
right-wing
with
goon.
both sides.
That's nonsense, because none of us are right-wing
The
goons.
freedom to disagree
We
with
are
both sides.
centrists. Yeah.
Yes, Saba.
I actually want to just get back to what he was saying, because I thought he made some very interesting points. Siddharth, right?
Yeah.
And even I'm very uncomfortable with the intolerance word, because let's stick to the themes of the debate. We are diverting all over the place. I mean, I have actually struggled with this in writing, so I just settled for hate crimes and hate speech sometimes. And then I would say what is referred to as the intolerance debate, because there is a slight problem with the phraseology, I think, to use that. And so I just wanted to intervene, because I wanted to get back to what he was saying. I thought it was very interesting.
So maybe you're up for the grant as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Mohandas.
Maya, at the heart of this debate is a lack of justice and the rule of law in this country.
Yeah.
If we had justice system working where people are punished within 2 or 3 years, if we had the rule of law where every person who has a hate speech or does something wrong is put in jail or is prosecuted immediately, we won't have this debate. We are mistaking, like my friend said, the lack of justice, the lack of the rule of law with large social movements of discrimination which doesn't exist. So let us be very careful when we define this problem. There is a lack of justice here. There is a lack of rule of law, the lack of respect for law. We are not able to give justice to anybody in this country for a long period of time. And that is being seen as some kind of intolerance all over this country, which I don't believe in. What Aakar, my friend, has said, yes, somebody has been killed, there have been crimes, punish them. But don't bring it in a very large area and say everybody is intolerant. That I object to.
Yeah, okay. And Dinesh pointed out, the fact is that these crimes and the rule of law and the lack of quick justice is not something which is since May 2014. It's
been there for a long time.
Yeah, it predates the current government as well, and it's across the country, across states. That's fundamentally, even as far as Karnataka is concerned, when it came to the Kalburgi case, what Kiran Mazumdar was also talking about, bring those people to justice.
No, see, that's another issue which
Not
concerns,
an issue.
which concerns.
No, that's the issue.
It's an issue which concerns everyone, right?
Well, why haven't they been brought to justice?
It's an issue which concerns every government, every political party, every system. There are many issues regarding our judicial system. There are many issues regarding our policing. There are many issues the way we investigate. Many investigations do not get completed. Yes, we are not able to nab the killers. We are searching for them, not that the police is not searching for them. But that's a thing that we have to try and solve. It's not based on any ideology or any sort of any political party responsible for that, right?
Dinesh, if I may just interrupt, it sounds like, humko karna hai, humko dikhana hai. This is the same speech. Yet again.
No, what I'm trying to say is, see, our discussion was based on intolerance. Now this is another issue altogether, how we can bring people.
So you prefer being called incompetent?
Yeah, okay.
You prefer being called incompetent government for not nabbing the killers?
See, I'm not saying we are an incompetent government.
No, but then why?
Crimes happen in this country, it's throughout the country, not just Karnataka.
I'm saying the Karnataka murder in particular. Why have the murderers not being nabbed? And why are you attributing it to others when you're...
Can I
is
answer
there complicity?
because you took half an hour to speak and I didn't interrupt. Okay? because you're a monologue, you go on a monologue and you don't interrupt anyone.
Dinesh, all right, let's just not get personal. Let's answer the question. Yeah.
Okay, now the point is, see, now she said, okay, 3 points. Law and order is an issue, intolerance is another issue. We have to try and nab the killers. We have to try and nab the people who create disturbance. We have to see that riots don't take place. We have to interrupt. We have to come in the way. Police have to act. That's an issue which concerns every government, every political party. We have to improve that system. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't mean that the debate that we're doing today is about intolerance. So the intolerance debate is different now.
But intolerance is such an abstract term that it encompasses everything that we're talking about.
No, but because
you're very tolerant towards crime. That's what we are saying.
When Mohan said, we are all fine over here, India is fine, it's not fine. There are a lot of issues.
Okay.
There are a lot of caste issues.
I didn't say that.
Earlier, when you said 99% of... 99,
I didn't say that.
99% of India is
don't
fine.
blame Indians in India.
I'm just saying there are a lot of issues. There are caste issues, there are issues concerning gender, there are issues concerning regions. There are so many points of conflict, there are fault lines. So the government, whoever is ruling, has to be very responsible.
Please.
No,
Maya,
there are fault lines, and we have to be very careful how we manage things.
Yeah.
Don't assume that everything is hunky-dory and everything is fine,
Yes.
and then the government has got nothing to do with this, and India is perfect. It's not. So my point is, when government speak, when the union ministers speak, when the chief minister speaks, when someone important speaks, if he sends out a message which is very disturbing, which causes lot of meaning for wrong interpretation.
Are you saying for the first time we are hearing ministers make a responsible statement?
Maya, I would make an emphatic statement. It pays every political party to prolong every kind of investigation, because politically it pays. It pays for him to be seen as the protector of a certain faith or a community.
I'm sorry, Mohan,
It pays for him to be seen. Please don't agree. It pays for him to be seen as doing something for the other community, so they prolong it. Lalu is still free after so many years. Where is justice? And now they say Lalu is the freedom fighter of this country is going to bring us relief. This is crazy. We need law and order. We need justice.
Yeah. All right, Sambit, Patra, if I can just add on a question, the point that's being made is that there are a lot of ills facing this country right now. There's no question about it. Whether somebody in the Western media writes about it or doesn't write about it is irrelevant as far as the domestic debate is concerned. But you have situations where people who talk about Amir Khan, for example, recently made this comment that my wife says sometimes we should leave the country. It was a short comment in a dialogue he had, but the finance minister was present at that event.
He was not present
well.
then. He was not present then. He had left.
He had left by that time. But the point is that somebody is voicing an opinion. The kind of commentary that came from your own, you had to come out and condemn your own party men for the attacks on Amir Khan after that.
Let me first answer to what Mr. Dinesh Gundu was saying. When he was asked about Kalburgi's murderers, Mr. Dinesh right now said, we are searching for the culprits. Over here they are searching for the culprits, but in the television channels they would say, ye sab murderer hai. They are the ones who are
never said that. I'm sorry.
I was not interrupting.
This is a wrong
I was not interrupting.
Nobody has said this.
Sir, I will tell you.
Who has said this?
Please, sir. I was not interjecting. I'm telling you who has said this and what has happened. Let me answer.
No, you got to be very clear what you're saying.
I'll be very clear. I never make off-the-cuff remarks. You right now pointed out that you are searching for the ones who have murdered. I have been in umpteen number of debates, and with all due regards, I would say, Mr. Dinesh Gundu, I have been more number of debates as the national spokesperson on this topic. And every Congress spokesperson had said that an ideology had killed Dabolkar, an ideology had killed Kalburgi, and this ideology, what Aakar was right now pointing out, was in fact Hindutva ideology, which has been propagated in some way by the Bharatiya Janata Party. You are still searching, yet in the subtle mind, you had searched and you have made comments and you have made India an intolerant country. Please first search, handcuff them, throw them behind the bars, and then come out and speak about it. Secondly, now a very serious political statement I'm going to make. As far as the Congress is concerned, I'll tell you, you were talking about a single party rule, a single family rule. When the Congress is out of power, I tell you with all my conviction, I'm one of the youngest over here, but I have read history. It can go to any extent to see to it that the ones who are in power are defamed. Congress and the stooges of Congress, I don't mean anyone.
No, this is a political
just a
debate
second.
now.
They can go to any extent
Sambit,
to do
it is-
anything to this country. I was not interjecting. You have been accusing,
Okay, I have to
abusing
rebut
Bharatiya
this.
Janata Party and
Maya.
Modi with every word. I never interjected. Let me complete. You had a minister, you had a former minister go to Pakistan and say, we cannot tolerate Modi anymore. Isko hatao. Who are you? And you went to Pakistan. Leave aside the crackers, who will burst the crackers and who will not. But you had two consecutive people, Salman Khurshid and Manishankar Ayyar. Both of them former minister. One of a present parliamentarian. And what were they saying? I can quote verbatim as to what Mr. Manishankar Ayyar was saying. He was saying, अगर हिंदुस्तान और पाकिस्तान के बीच में अच्छा रिश्ता होना है, तो आप इस मोदी को हटाओ. And you know the anchor was gracious enough. The Pakistani anchor was gracious enough to interject and say, आप क्या बोल रहे हैं? हम कैसे हटाएंगे? आप क्या बोल रहे हैं? हम कैसे हटाएंगे? मतलब आप ISI को बोल रहे हैं हटाने के लिए मोदी जी को? Just imagine the anchor was more gracious than one of your ministers. And Salman, just a second, Salman Khurshid goes a step ahead. He, on the podium of Jinnah Institute, delivers a lecture. And what does he say? Mr. Nawaz Sharif wants peace for Southeast Asia, but we have a non-statesmanly Mr. Narendra Modi who does not want to buy peace for the Southeast of Asia. This is what your people go and propagate in Pakistan. So this is the kind of tolerance you want from us?
All right. Okay.
No, you know what?
I'm not going to do it, but because I've heard Sambit say this often, this is a time where I jump in and I say, but this is what Modi said in Bihar and this is what Amit Shah said in Bihar.
Saying something in Bihar is different from saying something in Pakistan.
Let me just see.
Then, all right, Dinesh will do that.
Our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, goes to United States. He runs down the country. He criticizes the former Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He goes to some other country and he says, he talks about India in a bad way. He criticizes political parties. So no other Prime Minister has done this. No other Prime Minister has done this. So that is wrong. So in case, even if one of our Congress leaders have gone to Pakistan and said it in a way which is not right, it's wrong. There's nothing
to defend about it.
Yeah.
I think
but my point is over here. My point is here. My point over here is, Sambit, you have a culture minister like Mahesh Sharma.
Can I answer the Prime Minister bit in the foreign and thereafter you can culture minister?
You have your members of parliament, the kind of language they use. Is there any?
Are you saying Congress ministers have never used irresponsible language?
This was not
really?
This was not my
I'm
case.
saying just.
Mr. Sambit Patra leader to Congress
I'm
BJP,
saying
not me.
condemn everybody equally who uses.
Sambit, the point.
30 seconds. The Prime Minister, I really need to come in on this. Dinesh, if you allow
the
me.
Prime Minister to speak like that.
Dinesh, I heard you. I want to answer that.
The point is,
I want to answer that if you allow me.
The point is, Maya, the debate is getting distracted.
Just a second.
Okay.
Since he has
raised it's not a communal debate. Settle down.
The debate has to be on intolerance, not about what BJP did or what
Congress did. Allow me.
All right.
Let's talk about what is happening on hand, what's happening over
Congress and
here and now.
BJP, we are not in a TV studio,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
so let's not do that.
1 second, I need to.
30. No, Prime Minister. I have to answer.
No, I'm sorry.
If he doesn't, I have to do it. So,
I don't know about you guys. 1 second.
make it a Congress
The
BJP.
awful
Let's
thing
not have
about
a TV debate.
this debate right now is that it's political, and what that does is it takes the compassion out of the discussion. There is no compassion for people's lives. These are people who have come here to settle scores, and I'm sorry, you don't get to do this beyond a certain point of time. You've done it, and this is where you get off.
That's what I'm saying.
This is where you get off.
Let's talk about the issue at hand.
Sambit, please.
What are we discussing here?
I just think we should.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on.
I just think that, this debate is just going off track.
Yeah, it's going off track.
I think this is not a debate between BJP and
Congress.
Yeah, it is not.
mudslinging. I think we do need to understand that this is a very serious debate, and I think we all need to now wind up by saying, let us create a platform where we can hear differing and voices of dissent
Without
and have
politics.
a discussion, debate, and a rational debate at that, so that we really create a very enlightened and proud country. That's
Compassionate country.
Compassionate. And I think the room to be able to say, I don't agree with you, and I don't agree with you, and I'm still Indian, I'm still a citizen of my country, but I will engage with all of you, absolutely. And, you know, we should all be allowed to live and let. I think we have about 10 minutes or so for comments and questions from the audience. Oh my goodness. Okay, we really need to do a straw poll here and see who. So he put his hand up first. I saw him first. And we will take one from the group of students sitting in front. All right, you. Okay, 1 and 2. Go ahead. First there. You can take. Yeah. Give this gentleman the striped shirt a microphone. First there, yeah. First there.
Oh, the guys are.
No. Behind you. Sit down. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Nice try. I didn't ask you.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to start with a small comment. Okay, so people entered and sat there, and they thought that some of them sat on the right side, and some of them sat on the left, and we only see Vikram at the center. Okay. At the same time, we have and we are in a circle. So you decide which is left and which is right. So from our side, both are looking the other side. So these guys who sat on the right side look leftist because they are on the left side of ours. So it all looks upon the perspective that we have. Okay.
You have a question, sir?
Yes, I have. The problem out here is that what I believe, since the last few years, Modi ji has become the center of all the discussions. That is where the problem lies. If at all somebody says intolerance, how can you raise it against Modi? Where did Mr. Modi came up? So why Congress gets agitated is because that they can use this opportunity to target him.
So
they say that
question, because we really don't have time.
So what I am saying is, my question is, for both the parties, why do you make one party or one individual as a center point of discussion while we as a nation?
Is there any one person that question is directed to?
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Patra.
Mr. Patra, take the question.
His question was as to why Mr. Modi is the center of discussion. And I would say, with all my humility at disposal, that well, he's a center of discussion because he's that charismatic personality what he is. That's why he's the center of discussion. No, why else?
Okay.
I mean, see, there are two kinds of center of
discussion. No,
discussion.
he's an hate object. Yes. He's center of discussion because people can't tolerate him. People can't tolerate him. And they want him out of the way through means fair of
And that lady in the back after that in the pink.
See, he's the center of discussion because we would all agree to the fact that 2014, when he came in for the prime ministership, when he was contesting, for the first time the discourse of Indian politics towards development was born. You know, large extent, people have aspiration, people look towards him for fulfilling the aspiration, people look towards him so that he can take the country forward. That's why for us he's the center of discussion. For the Congress, he's the center of discussion because they want to disseminate him from their position so that their center of discussion can occupy the position, and you know who he is.
All right, you have a question. Go ahead.
I hope I'll be allowed at least a minute to ask this. It's a
no, there's 30 seconds. No minute to ask a question. Sorry.
It's a statement more than a question. India is a 5,000-year-old country. It is the birthplace of 4 major religions in the world. Now the entire debate about intolerance has begun because there has been a certain incident in Dadri, but I need to remind the panelists here that communal riots have been happening in India since pre-independence days.
Yeah, we've discussed that. What's your point?
The question is, why only now? Why does the intolerance debate arise only now, when Modi is coming to power and not before?
We've spent 1 hour just discussing that, so we're going to not take that as a question. Ma'am, you.
Yes.
Some ladies to ask a question.
My question is to Mr. Vikram Sampath. I want to ask you, why did you buckle under pressure? Why did you give in to the blackmail and threats from those, the so-called intellectual writers? Because, by withdrawing, I think they were showing their intolerance. So I think you should have stood your ground.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
No, as I mentioned to you right at the beginning, I'm glad that the opening comment and the closing comment is mine. So it just shows that the center has very little space in a debate like this. The fact, as I said, specifically in this particular case, there is.
Why are you feeling disappointed?
It was threatening to snowball into something much bigger, and we would not have had too many people being here. And then the same people would have again stood up and said, "Look, we always told you this was a right-wing kind of a gathering or whatever." And I think sometimes one says you stoop to conquer. I think an element of sacrifice. I mean, a lot of writers have also said he doesn't understand the pain and anguish of someone giving away a hard-earned award. I do understand that, but at the same time, there is also a lot of pain and anguish at giving away something that I have built and nurtured over the last 3 to 4 years, and that was for the principle that I think the individual is not bigger, the platform is bigger. I think the platform there are very, very few platforms in this country which are still neutral. We've seen agendas playing their role all the time. A neutral platform which is not guided by media houses, which is not guided by corporate agendas, but it is a people's festival, a people's gathering, a conclave for debate, discussion and dissent in a democratic manner. By sticking my ground and by ensuring that I was going to be so adamant, I would let this platform crumble. So I think an individual is not important here. An individual's ego is not important. The values on which such platforms are built, which are so few and far between in this country, I think that was important. So that was the only reason why I did this.
No, but so you were not. But Vikram, just a point. But you were just a part of a team, So your views as an individual were not the views of the Bangalore Literature Festival.
Yeah. So that's the argument he had made. But I think, as he said,
and even if there were, so what?
Okay, so quick comment. That Vikram, you said that you wanted to prove a point and stand up on principle, and you've done that. And now that Bangalore is also here, would you consider coming back on BLF? Because we will cheer you on if you do, won't we? So would you think about it?
Certainly will think about it.
Okay, good. That's all we need to know.
Okay, yeah, you.
Okay,
that's it. I'm going to tell you, we have you, and we have a lady over there who's got her hand up, and that's it. Yes, because I'm getting messages from Vasanti saying rap. So yeah, go ahead.
I won't take much time, and since there's been much of argument there, it's an innocent request. Can't we just do away with this term tolerance and intolerance? I mean, it looks like somebody is like, now we are getting political Congress, BJP. It's like Congress is doing favor on BJP by being tolerant on them, or BJP is being doing a favor, or the Hindus are doing a favor. I mean, we are all one country, one big family. Yeah. Why are we doing a favor?
Why are we doing this? All right.
Please, can't we do away with the word? That's it.
All right, that's a very good comment. Let's do away with the word intolerance. Ma'am over there. No, excuse me, this lady here in the front, yeah.
She's quite retarded.
Ma'am. Good evening, panel. My question is to Mr. Dinesh and Patra. Why can't you guys, like all you politicians, stop behaving like kindergarten kids and start
I think that's a fair point. I've actually had to say that on air once or twice, ma'am, to some of my panelists, that we're not in kindergarten and let's all try and be civilized.
Your point is grown up and tolerant.
Yes.
We tolerate everything. The school kids going to school carry heavy bags. The teachers are not happy with the syllabus. Students are not happy with the syllabus. Parents are not happy with the syllabus. We tolerate it. You go to court against someone, we know our case can be bought up, we tolerate it. But
okay, let me just tell you one thing. You may see a lot of politicians fighting in the assembly, arguing and all that.
Yeah.
But once the TV goes off, they're all best of friends.
That's what Sampath opened with. They all have a coffee and a slice of pizza.
It's not so bad as...
Exactly how...
So why can't they do it in front of the cameras? It's a good point.
Exactly how kindergarten students behave. Kindergarten children behave. They once fight for biscuits and
all right, we'll take one question from this side. This gentleman.
Maya, just a comment. Yeah. There is no representation of kindergarten children, but I know they'll be deeply offended by this comparison.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
I represent the student community, so my question is that we are born in a generation where we have to pick one. You just get out of college, what's your favorite football team? Who's your favorite music player? Who do you love more, Papa or Mummy? We have to pick one. As Siddharth said, where is the way for that centralist? Okay, Kejriwal does this thing good, he's good, and they do this thing bad, they are bad. So where's the way for us to, how do we become centralist? I want to ask this to maybe one from the corporate or one from the political fraternity.
You can pick panelists.
I've heard Mohandas sir already in my college, so maybe Kiran ma'am.
Maybe Kiran, sure, okay.
The question is, ma'am, the question is how we as students, because always we've been seen as pick one. What's your favorite this, what, how we as students become centralists?
I think you have to use your judgment.
What is right?
And decide what is right. That's it. I mean, it's up to you. That's what, having a differing view is all about. It's up to each individual. What do you think is right? What is it that appeals to you? So everything that is right and which is something that appeals to you is center. I send it to you.
And you have to decide.
See, I think the issue is not centrist as non-partisan, getting your facts right.
It's a balance.
Getting your facts right and taking a holistic view of all the range of facts available. Secondly, if you want to stay sane, not just non-partisan, spend less time listening to TV discussions.
We just need a voice of sanity.
All right, we have time for literally like one last question, so I'm going to give it to this girl in the front here on the green t-shirt. Yeah, there you go.
I have a question to all the journalists on the panel here. It was very...
Including me, I count myself out.
So, it was brought up that, today it's very clear to everyone sitting here that which media house is backing which party. I just want to understand, how do you see this growing, and do you see, how can you ensure that that actually doesn't happen and we actually get to know the facts? Because today, whatever you hear on news, you are always dicey whether it's actually true, or is it all blown out of proportion, or is it actually true?
I think the only thing, I think the only thing that journalists can and ought to do is to stay true and stay, approach their profession with integrity. But that's very difficult to do, as you rightly pointed out, if they work for big corporations which are owned by people and there are editorial pressures. But it is, but let's not forget that journalists are also voters. Journalists also have political opinions. As long as we don't let those political opinions permeate and seep into our articles or copy or whatever we're doing, I think, that would be, the battle would be won at least by journalists. But why that doesn't happen? Because, as I said, to run a television, it would be unrealistic to say that, all journalists should work for free and for blood and nothing. I mean, obviously not, journalists have to be paid. Paper is very expensive. To produce a newspaper is expensive. So you do need money to back big news corporations. But you have to have a sense of, the journalist working for the corporation must maintain a sense of identity.
Having said that, if I can just speak in defense of big media, because it is an expensive business.
I don't know, Maya,
it's an expensive proposition.
Yeah.
Saba, just a second. There is an attempt, certainly, to keep management and editorial separate as far as possible, and I think, as Padma said, it's up to the individual journalist to ensure that they stay true to their reasons for being in the profession and their story that they're reporting. So.
I also think it's a bit simplistic to say that it's quite clear which paper is batting for which government. It's not clear at all. It's not. If you look at the mainstream, it's not so clear at all. And things happen. It's too complicated to get into how media operates. Big media operates.
That's a separate debate.
I think that's entirely not true.
I personally think that social media has come as a major corrective. I think mainstream media has lost its integrity and credibility to a very large extent. And this whole threat that a certain group of people are feeling.
Media debate actually for a separate panel at a separate
because
time.
it's being generated in the media. This tolerance-intolerance debate is a creature of TV channels. And they're feeling threatened.
Some of our panelists have to leave as well. We're completely out of time, but I think the lesson that we're going to take away from this evening's debate is we're never all going to be able to agree on one thing. The idea is to allow for different points of view, to accept them, agree to disagree. Maybe that really is the definition of tolerance, but anyone who's willing to work on it, Siddharth has mentioned his grant, you can all line up for that. We'll end it on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, every panelist. It has been said by this panel. I think ultimately the last word is, no matter who boycotted or whatever did to the festival, Bangalore did not boycott the festival, and let's hear it for Bangalore City. It's been a fabulous, exciting 2 days of thought and ideas, and until the next Bangalore Literature Festival, that is the Bengaluru Sahitya Utsava, Yelrugu Namaskara. Have yourselves a good night. I'm Vasanthi Hariprakash signing off. Good night.